BlogTalkRadio. I'm Aaron Jackson from Mistaken Truth, and today I'm joined by Glendene Grant from Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. Hi, Glendene.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for having me on your show.
So just to start, could you tell us about how this whole thing started with your daughter Jessie Foster?
Just over 6.5 years ago, my daughter Jessie Foster went missing in Las Vegas. We're Canadian. She had been down in Las Vegas for 10 months. We thought she was just living there, enjoying life. We thought she had met somebody. She told us she was engaged and in love. And when she was planning on coming back to Canada for a wedding reception for her stepsister, who had just got married in Mexico, she vanished. And we hired a private investigator right away who had discovered some frightening things that at first we didn't know what it meant. We just knew it was horrific. We found out that Jessie had been beaten, her jaw had been broken, and she had been hospitalized, and that she had been forced to work at a escort agency in Las Vegas, that she had been arrested for solicitation of prostitution. And in 2006, we just didn't know what to do or where to turn. We didn't know anything other than, she was in another country and she was missing. It dawned on us slowly that exactly what we had learned that first week added up to the crime of human trafficking. Jessie had been taken on 2 times. She had been taken down to the United States. The first time to Fort Lauderdale and the Keys. The second time she was taken to Atlantic City, New Jersey, and Manhattan, New York, and then until brought home, she was taken to Las Vegas. Now, we found out early on that the cities that I named are all hubs in the United States for human trafficking. So everything added up to us. As soon as we knew what human trafficking was, it added up to us that this is what our daughter was a victim of, that she had been taken away against her will. She'd been forced to into the sex trade, and when she was trying to leave, she was moved. Some people think that she was murdered. Some people think that Jessie's remains will be found, in the Mojave Desert outside of Vegas. I've never felt in my heart and my stomach and head that my daughter is not alive. But if she's not, then we'll get there and we'll deal with that when we do. And so early on, I had a couple of options. One was, well, first of all, my doctor didn't know even how to help me. I didn't know what to do. I thought this was something that if I went to my doctor, she would help me and fix me. So she tried antidepressants, but it didn't work. When you're not chemically depressed, chemicals don't work. So I tried, all sorts of ways to cope with this, and I wasn't doing very well. And then I just sort of started talking and blogging and just doing things kind of for my own peace of mind, so to speak. And those things turned out to be helping other people. And that just went in a direction that I would never have ever guessed would happen. I ended up in 2010, I started M.A.T.H, Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. But even prior to that, I would go around and do educational presentations to high schools and colleges and universities, or anybody who was holding an event conference, and if they wanted to hear Jessie's story and how this happened to her, and how they can become aware of this crime. And it's gone to where I have my own BlogTalkRadio show that I use, Missing and Exploited. I try to help other families who don't know where to turn. You really can't get a lot of media attention on your loved ones when they're missing, and a lot of times the police downplay it and say, well, they were high-risk lifestyle. They were this and that. Well, Jessie was not a high-risk lifestyle. Jessie was not doing anything wrong. She thought that she was in love with somebody. She thought that she, trusted in this person. And because she is the all-Canadian girl, the girl next door, beautiful, young, and naive, it's kind of turned her human trafficking case into what in Canada, she's like the poster child for the crime of human trafficking. When people talk about human trafficking in a modern-day sense, Jessie is now very often brought up. I'm so grateful to that. It just, a lot of people say, this is wonderful what you do. It's not that I was out to do anything wonderful. I just didn't want to be crazy. Sorry, got a little choked up. I just didn't want to be crazy and not of any use to anybody. Just got 3 sisters, and 2 of those sisters are mommies, so I'm a grandma now. This all happened since Jessie's disappearance. But I had to stay sane somehow. I have a husband, an elderly father who passed away last year who, I needed to be there mentally and physically for him. So there's a lot of reasons why this coping mechanism, and I say that because that's what it is. Everybody who goes through any kind of horrific nightmare, anything, and it doesn't have to be a disappearance or human trafficking, it can be a sick child or the loss of a parent, anything that you're just not quite prepared for, you need to develop coping skills so you can carry on. And so that is how this ended up for me, being what I call my coping skills. And if I can help anyone, I will.
Well, I certainly don't think that you're crazy for looking for your daughter and for helping other people. And I think that if people do consider you crazy, then I think they're probably more crazy than the majority of us that care. So you said that that Jessie was in a relationship and she was beaten, and then she was taken to these different cities. So
actually, the beating came after. She was taken first, and then they left her in Las Vegas, which is where everything else happened. She was beaten and where she went missing.
Okay, so who was it that pushed her into that and pushed her into the escorting in Las Vegas?
Well, Jessie had met a fellow in Canada here when she was 17 years old and still in high school. It came about where she had a boyfriend who did hip-hop shows around the city that she lived in Calgary, Alberta. And Jessie would go to these hip-hop shows that her boyfriend would put on. And at this one of these shows, she met this fellow and her became friends. There was no romantic or anything. I mean, if he had an interest in Jessie, Jessie was not interested in him. She had a boyfriend. But they stayed in touch, and when Jessie was 20 years old, she moved back to Kamloops, BC, where she had grown up, and this fellow started calling her. And now, understanding how human trafficking is and how they groom the girls, sometimes the grooming even turns into physical and psychological and drug addiction to get them to listen. But other times they just become really good friends, and the girls are young. So at the age of 20, Jessie would have looked anyone in the eye and said, I know this guy, I've known him for 3 years. But where in reality she didn't know enough of him to know that he was a pimp. His older brother had been arrested several times for pimping out young girls, for beating sex trade workers who didn't comply. So a lot of violence. So she didn't know this at all, but she thought she knew him. And against my better judgment, because I didn't want her to go anywhere, I'm always saying things like, there's no such thing as a free ride. Nobody's going to offer you these trips for free. That is something else on. And she, at 20 years old, said, Mom, you're overreacting. No, you worry too much. You've always been this way about your kids. we didn't know about anything like human trafficking, and she didn't know that this guy was connected to pimping in any way. So when she went to Las Vegas at the end of those other cities, he left her there with somebody that he knew, another fellow from Canada, from British Columbia, and his, I guess it was a girlfriend from California. And then it went from from these people, this person that she thought that was her fiance was a good friend of that guy. So it kind of, the way that we thought it was is that she met these people and his friend and she fell in love. But the way it actually looks is that he took her down there and left her or sold her to one person who then gave her or sold her to another person who then either has something to do with her disappearance or doesn't. He denies it. I think he does, but we all have our own opinions, obviously. So it just kind of went, every time Jessie would tell us something and I would say things to her like, you can't stay down there. It's another country. You need to come home. She would say, she would have something else. The first time when she got there and I said, you can't just stay there, her response was, well, my 21st birthday is in 2 weeks from today. I'm going to stay for my birthday. In 2 weeks when I'm asking her, when are you going to come home? She's now saying, oh, I was in a car accident with somebody. Now we have to wait for an insurance claim. When that went on for a while, I'd say, when are you coming home? She'd say to me, I met someone. And then I'm moving with this guy. And, oh, we're engaged now. So, and this went on for 10 months. There was one time she did come home. And I don't know if it was them testing her. Now that I look back, at the time I was just happy to see her. It was at the end of November 2005. She'd been there since May. And she actually stayed right from the end of November right through to Christmas Day. Every day talked to this so-called fiance on the phone over and over every day. They weren't just conversations, they were fighting and screaming and swearing matches, and it made us all believe that there was going to be no way that Jessie would be going back to this. We actually, myself especially, thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness, because I couldn't talk her into not going back. But then we woke up Christmas morning to her telling us that she needed a ride to the airport, she had to get back. There had been no discussion prior other than our plans to go to my elderly father's house for Christmas dinner. He passed away last year, so Jessie never got to see him again, ever now. So there's just so many reasons why we just think that she was probably threatened to come back, and the threats are in the form of, you have 3 sisters, you have 2 stepsisters, we know your friends, because before she was ever coerced into anything, they did the boyfriend-fiance role, meaning that she spilled her guts about her entire life. So by the time Jessie was beaten and forced into anything, the threats would have been something like, if you leave, we'll just bring down one of your friends that you've told me all about, who I know where they live, and I have their cell phone number. So the women who are victims of this start to believe that they're protecting other people, so they comply. They're also brainwashed into believing how disgusted and horrified their families are with you, and they will never have anything to do with you again because you are an embarrassment, because look at you. We can prove to them what you do. So there's a lot of different angles, the beating, the embarrassment, the threats, but these women ultimately, every night, over and over, they are sold, and the people that are buying them are raping them over and over daily. They may not think it because the women are probably award-winning actresses, because if they're not, and these men complain that these women are unresponsive or sad or cried or flinched because, they thought somebody was going to hit him when he was moved his arm quick, then these women are going to get beat so that they don't do that again. So, all in all, it's the most horrific thing to be a victim of human trafficking, whether you're missing or not. it would be bad enough to be a victim, but to have the victim forced into this through those threats, and then go home or still see their family every day, it would be, just as horrific as somebody who has been taken away from their family and hidden or moved around or just taken so far away. And then after many, many years, psychologically, for a protective mode, the brain sort of starts to forget the good life with the family and the mom and the dad and everybody. And they forget it, and they just start to think that this is life, People wonder why sometimes there's, homeless people and wandering around, and some of these people have been victims of crimes, horrific crimes for many years, and obviously there's a lot of them who have mental illness and such, but a lot of people don't realize that some of the people that you see that or maybe to you are a homeless person or a street person, a lot of those people have been victimized, and this is all that was left for them. We have to really think, when we do see people down and out, we don't know where they've been, and we don't know why they're there. I honestly hope that my daughter Jessie isn't, a homeless person in some foreign city somewhere just trying to get by every day. But I also hope that she's not being raped and beaten every day. But then again, I also hope that she wasn't murdered 6.5 years ago. So it's kind of a tough thing when you really mull about it too much. I try not to. I try to think of how proud Jessie would be of everything that's done in her name, and how amazed she would be at how far we've taken bringing awareness to this crime. And sometimes I try to imagine her saying silly things like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, this is so embarrassing. I can't believe that you told the world everything about me. My entire life is out there. And I can't believe that you were invited to my 10-year graduation from high school." And, I don't think of her as, a 21-year-old just kind of going, "Oh my God, Mom, you're so embarrassing." And, and I just try to keep going that way. I can't, think too hard and long over the daily things of what's happening to Jessie, because as you can tell, I would fall apart constantly. So I just try to stay strong, and I just try to bring awareness, and I do it all in Jessie's name, and hope that no other parent has to live this horrible existence where you have to hold on every day. But I also try very hard to make sure that there's no other young women who I know or have ever met who are going to fall victim to this crime. Because if I know them, then that means that they know about human trafficking. That's just what I do now.
Yeah. Well, we'll just go to a quick ad break, and then we'll continue with more talks about Mothers Against Human Trafficking and how you help other people in similar situations.
You're listening to A2Zen FM, life-altering talk radio. Anything from activism to Zen and everything in between, right here and now. Informative, inspiring, engaging. Our hosts provide you with the global news and educated advice you need to make a difference in your life, in your world. Knowledge is power. A2Zen.fm.
Exposing the Truth Radio intends to be as open and uncensored as possible. Freedom to express unpopular views is key to global evolution. Everything we post and allow posted is not necessarily reflective of the absolute truth, nor do we endorse every word or every piece of media here. Having stated this, we seek to post and broadcast highly accurate information from alternative, mainstream, and fringe sources. Remember to listen to Exposing the Truth Radio, and you decide. This broadcast is not the views or opinions of A2Zen.fm nor any of the hosts here at A2Zen.fm radio and magazine. To contact Aaron, go to Facebook, Exposing the Truth, or exposingthetruth.info. Now let's get back to our hosts on Exposing the Truth here on A2Zen.fm.
Hello and welcome back to Exposing the Truth Radio. I'm joined here today by Glendene Grant, the mother of Jessie Foster and founder of Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. So, Glendene, can you tell us a little bit about how you help other people in similar situations through Mothers Against Trafficking Humans and your blog Talk Radio?
Well, the way that I try to help families is to, the same way that I kind of got through the first part of having a missing loved one, because you feel so isolated and as if it's, you're the only one it's happened to until you start realizing there's so many others. And then the people that have been living this and dealing with this nightmare for longer than you, the ones that have developed coping skills one way or another, we can kind of embrace the new families that have stepped into this nightmare in a way that nobody can, and they can see through us that somehow there is still a life for us. I found one thing that helped me at the very, very beginning, and I think it put things into such a perspective for me that it allowed me to keep living through anything. And that was when Jessie first went missing. I heard about a young 15-year-old missing girl through one of the networking sites that I was on. This young girl had met some 21-year-old guy on the internet, and this was just before Facebook and everything. So it was she had met this guy, he's 21, and he had convinced her to run away, and then she was missing now. His family had no idea where it was. Her family consisted of her single father, who was raising her, and 2 older sisters. So this dad, while he was dealing with, when you have a missing loved one, everything in your life stops physically, mentally, I should say, but your bills still keep going. You still need groceries. So you still have to somehow bring in money into your household. In my case, I was very fortunate that I have a husband, and I'm very fortunate that, he was able to maintain like that. So this man, he's on his own, and he's got 2 older daughters and a missing daughter. And it was a Halloween night, and there was a horrific car accident, and his 2 older daughters were both killed. And all I could think about when I read the story about this man was how we both had a missing daughter, but how I had no other children who I've had to bear. And when I heard about him, I just thought, I actually felt really bad when I felt sorry for myself because of that one story that I had heard. I have 3 daughters who are perfectly healthy. I have 4 grandchildren who are the light of my life, and I've got one horrible thing in my life that I can talk about, and everything else has been good. And so I try to keep that in mind, and so that's how I try to help the other families, is by showing them that this is one horrible thing. We have to grow from it, because otherwise people who did this to us are doing it to us every day over and over and over. And so that's the way that I want to do it, because that's what I need. But there's another way that it helps them, and that's because most missing people get no media attention. Most missing people, if they do get some media attention, it's like a flash in the pan, so to speak. They're on one day or two, and then, unfortunately, they're on to the next missing and tragic story. So I just want to try to give families a way to tell the whole story, not just some blurb, 5 minutes worth of talking about them and then that's it. I want them to talk about how their loved one was when they were little kids and the love they have for them and the loss that they feel with them either missing or have been murdered and maybe no justice for this, because it's another way that you have a hard time getting your coping skills to kick in, because a lot of people call it closure. I don't use that word because I find that closure comes with rewinding time and reliving it with your loved one. So I interchange the word closure with the word answers. When you start getting some answers and you're able to cope a little better. But other ways are to just get it out, get the story out, let people hear. How wonderful. I mean, I love talking about Jessie when she was little, and people go, "What do you miss?" And I'm like, well, you know what? I miss Jessie can belch for a full minute straight, and people go, "Oh, that's gross." I'm like, really? I think it's hilarious. I miss that, like silly things that were Jessie. I miss everything about her, but it's those little tiny things that all add to her, and those are the things that she could do that not very many people could, and that's I think it's because her dad's side of the family is on the East Coast, where there's a lot of and fishermen, and they're all belching and spitting, and I teased her all the time about that. Had to have come from that side of your family. So there's so many aspects of having a missing loved one, of trying to imagine what they're living through, or perhaps how they were killed, and then just trying to do what you can so that it doesn't keep happening to people.
Yeah, so when we were advertising this show on Facebook, people had the question of why did you call it Mothers Against Trafficking Humans instead of Humans Against Trafficking Humans?
Well, I had a couple people ask me about that, and then I say, well, I really didn't say it in a way that it had to just be Mothers Against it, any more than the organization Mothers Against Drunk Drivers is just for mothers. It just, there was a little sort of a saying that I had that went with math, and so I wanted it to be M.A.T.H, because I want people to do the math. And my reason was that there's over if there's over 2.5 million people trafficked every year worldwide, and there's a global annual market of over $40 billion, somebody is getting rich out there. So I wanted people to do the math. So it wasn't a mother thing. It's just that's the word that started with the letter M. So we could do the math. But definitely we could start a division of PATH off of it, Parents Against Trafficking Humans, and we could do anything we want, because this is something that everybody should be against trafficking humans. I have on the 18th of this month, I'm interviewing the founders of M.A.T.H, and it's Men Against Sexual Trafficking. And so it's the same thing. It does not mean that it's only for men. It was founded by a husband and a wife. So it's a crime that everybody has to be against, and we all have to fight to raise awareness, make it so that the criminals have a harder time of being able to get their victims. And then also there's something else that I really believe in. And well, first of all, it's stopping the demand, which means if nobody wanted to buy sex, there would be no need for somebody to be forced into selling it. So stopping the demand, but one of the ways that it can be done is what they have done in Sweden and now in other Nordic countries, because it works so well in Sweden, and that's the Swedish model, the Nordic model, and that consists of making it perfectly legal to sell your body. It's your body. You do anything you want with it. but that it's not okay to buy one in any way, shape, or form, be it sex or body parts or anything. And when people are arrested for it, say if there's a sex trade worker and a John and there's an arrest goes down, the woman is offered help. She is offered schooling, counseling, housing, clothing, doctors, dentists, whatever she needs so that she can move on from this part of her life, because nobody chooses it as their dream job, obviously. Whether they're forced into it or not, it's not somebody should not want to choose that. And then the John is now punished, and he is arrested, and he's charged, and he's convicted and fined and sentenced and publicized so that his wife and neighbors and boss all know that this man was out there buying sex off of a sex trade worker. And it's really lowered the demand for paid sex, drove a lot of the pimps and traffickers out of Sweden into other Nordic countries, which then, of course, increased the crime there. So they invented the Nordic model, and it has now done the same thing there. It's diminished the crime of human trafficking and pimping, and it's been of a great good to the women who ended up in whatever reason or form ended up in that lifestyle. So there's things we can do.
So yeah, I have some statistics to go with these kind of figures. So these are UN figures, obviously like suggestive figures, not very accurate. And these are worldwide figures that suggest that the number of victims at any given time to be up to 2.4 million people. Not just sexual slavery, but slaves in general. 80% sexual slavery, 17% forced labor, costing around an estimated $32 billion a year. You just said it was over $40 billion, but obviously it's just estimates.
That's right.
But the average cost of a human slave is only $90. That's worldwide. In the United States, only 10% of police stations have a protocol to deal with trafficking, and then many of the victims charged with prostitution. And despite the UN report, the agency's fund to fight human trafficking has only received $47,000 sent in by UN member nations, who have pledged less than $1 million each to fight the problem. And on a slightly different issue, the life expectancy of a child prostitute is only 7 years. And going back to some more U.S. statistics from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, U.S. Department of Justice. In the United States, there are between 14,500 and 17,500 people estimated to be trafficked in the United States every year. 50% of those are children. 800,000 people trafficked each year. And massive issues around East Asia and the Pacific region that are trafficked into the United States. 46% for prostitution. And they're like the worldwide statistics from those sources. And more information people can get from humantraffickinged.com and humantrafficking.org, and also notforsalecampaign.org. And for more information on the Jessie Foster campaign and Mothers Against Trafficking Humans, you can go to mothersagainsttraffickinghumans.com. For the Blog Talk Radio, you can go to blogtalkradio.com/missing and exploited. On Facebook, Mothers Against Trafficking Humans is facebook.com/Mothers Against Trafficking Humans. For more information on Jessie Foster, you can go to jessiefoster.ca. That's Jessie with an I-E. To contact Glendene, you can go to facebook.com/missing Jessie Foster. For YouTube videos on the subject, you can go to youtube.com/user/Jessie's mom, Glendene. And for lots of information on Jessie Foster, you can go to jessiefoster.blogspot.ca. So there are certainly lots of sites on these issues, but not very much coverage in mainstream media. Certainly your case is, to me, the most heard of issue for myself. I've seen it in on a few websites, and that's basically because you've pushed for it. And I think if it was pushed in general, if everyone in a similar kind of situation pushed for it as much as you, then I think it would be a big issue in the mainstream media. I mean, 17,500 people every year just trafficked into the United States. Now that's a lot of people. There's only 50 states.
That's right. It's just crazy when you think about the fact that when somebody goes missing in another country, it's not like we can just go and wander around and look for our loved ones and do all the things that you would want to do, like put up posters everywhere and all things that you want to do if they went missing from right in your own city. But we're talking about another country. We're talking about, I went down there 3 times, well, twice to Las Vegas. Once I was on the Montel Williams show, I was in New York. I went to go back to Las Vegas a third and then a 4th time. And both times I was stopped at the border and I was told that I was not allowed to cross the border any longer. And when I tried the 2nd time after, I thought, well, maybe, I don't know. I thought maybe there was a mistake. I didn't know why they would stop me. They told me if I did it again, I would have a permanent block into the country. So the only thing we could come up with, obviously, is that I've just, caused too much, commotion. I've raised too much awareness, and it hasn't been, good publicity. And but I don't care, I mean, I don't have to be in that city to do anything to raise awareness to my daughter. I've made friends with people in social networking who are down there. And so there's a lot of people. I just got offered from an organization yesterday because there was another young woman missing, Cara Nichols, and her case is similar in a lot of ways to Jessie's. And because of that, people actually have talked to this investigating agency about Jessie, making them decide that they wanted to look into Jessie's case too. So in the last couple of days, I've now got another organization that's working on Jessie. So it seems like it's never stopped. I'll make sure it never stops, first of all, but it does seem like it's never stopped. And people are going to continue wanting to hear about it. If I'm ready to share her story, people are willing to listen, and I'm really grateful to that.
So can I ask, what was the official reason for them blocking you at the border?
The official reason was when I was living in Calgary in 1987, somebody who lived in my house had a brush with the law, and he lived at my address. So that's it. But there was, in my opinion, it's just like an excuse that they came up with, and it took them several tries to where I got across their border before they could come up with something. And because, if they really didn't want me down there, then they shouldn't have let me, But, there's some things I can't do anything about, and that's Jessie being missing, that's me not being able to cross the border. So I just concentrate on the things that I can do, and that's raise awareness to her disappearance and help other people raise awareness to their missing loved ones or, exploited. So, whatever I can do, I'm going to just keep doing it.
Okay, we're just going to go to another ad break, and then we'll continue with a few more questions.
You're listening to A to Zen FM, life-altering talk radio. Anything from activism to Zen and everything in between, right here and now. Informative, inspiring, engaging. Our hosts provide you with the global news and educated advice you need to make a difference in your life, in your world. Knowledge is power. A2Zen.fm.
Exposing the Truth Radio intends to be as open and uncensored as possible. Freedom to express unpopular views is key to global evolution. Everything we post and allow posted is not necessarily reflective of the absolute truth, nor do we endorse every word or every piece of media here. Having stated this, we seek to post and broadcast highly accurate information from alternative, mainstream, and fringe sources. Remember to listen to Exposing the Truth Radio, and you decide.
This broadcast is not the views or opinions of A2Zen.fm, nor any of the hosts here at A2Zen.fm radio and magazine. To contact Aaron, go to Facebook, Exposing the Truth, or exposingthetruth.info. Now let's get back to our hosts on Exposing the Truth, here on A2Zen.fm.
Hello and welcome back to Exposing the Truth Radio. I'm joined here today with Glendene Grant. Glendene, you wanted to just tell us about a new case in Canada?
Well, yeah, it's actually, the case itself is not new. It's, over 2.5 years old, but it's a case where a man from Toronto's wife took their 2 sons that he had custody of, took them out of the country on expired passports and took them to Poland, where her father helped her with this crime, and other people hid them. And just yesterday, the father, who's in his late 70s, was just given house arrest for helping her daughter abduct the grandchildren. And it has now started some new laws. There's already been a couple of laws that have been changed in Canada in the last couple of years with human trafficking. There's now got some new laws started where we've got bills come out where they're to do with parental abduction and human trafficking, because in a lot of ways we do see a similarity. I mean, when one parent abducts a child and takes them away to another country or takes them somewhere else and fills the child, most likely, their head full of lies. There are times when, you might be doing the child good because the parent is not a good parent, but in other cases you're not. It's psychologically damaging. The kids grow up having major trust issues, and a lot of them end up, having other issues because of this. So this case that, hit the news, it all happened yesterday, so it's really new about the grandmother's arrest. And I actually had the father and David Goldman, whose son was abducted in the same type of situation, on one of my shows when the mother called in from Poland to interrupt my show and try to give her side of the story. And that interview, actually, her statement actually was used against her in a lot of this. So it is in its way, it does have its reasons why we do connect human trafficking and parental abduction to a degree. It might not be forced sex trade or labor or that sort of thing, but the psychological damage done is very, very close.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that when I mentioned that I was doing the show to one of my friends, they told me that in Las Vegas there was a massive trafficking kind of business, including child sex trafficking, and that the pimps pay the owners or managers of the casinos, which have a lot of them have the hotels in the casinos, and they pay the owners or managers to let the escorts or slaves or whatever you want to call them, to let them stay inside the casinos instead of getting kicked out, to kind of do their business. All the pimps, of course.
Well,
so they never have to leave the building.
No, they don't have to leave the building, and they don't have to do anything that they would that might make them have to worry about being caught in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. I just got. I just have a little issue that just came up here, and it sidetracked me, Aaron, and I apologize because it should not happen during the show. But my daughter and my grandchildren are locked outside the house right now, and I have to go and lock the front door. And I know that's a horrible thing to do in the middle of the show. But it'll only take me it'll take me a minute, and I apologize. That's not professional. Oh, 1 second.
So I just want to say that if anyone wants to find out more about how slaves are kind of manipulated into the slavery, into prostitution, from totally unrelated issues, and there's a documentary called Sex Slaves, and it's by PBS, I believe. And I think it's based in Amsterdam.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm just telling them about the Sex Slaves documentary by PBS. I think it's based in Amsterdam, and it kind of explains how people are given a job, say, in an office or in a cafe, and they're taken over by usually a woman because they feel safer. So they're taken over from places like the United Kingdom, France, and then sold to a pimp. Unknowingly, they're just told that this is the person you're going to be working for, and then they're forced into sex slavery. And they're given a debt to repay, and they tell the girls that if they pay off the debt by working their death, then they can leave. However, they keep making excuses, and they keep saying, well, you have more debt now because you've done this, or you've taken too long, or you missed the payment. And basically, they never ever pay off the debt. It's just a kind of issue to trick them into kind of working.
It is a huge trick, because even when they say that they're deducting so much money off of this so-called debt, they're also piling money onto this debt for things like toothpaste, food, toilet paper, clothing. So, yeah, anytime that they say that some of the debt is being reduced by the work they're forcing them into, they're also adding more on than they're ever taking off.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, have any of these services, like the CIA, the FBI, the police, and also private investigators, have they helped very much in this case or in similar cases? In similar cases they have. In Jessie's case, the police on the actual investigation discounted her right from the beginning, said things to me like, well, she probably ran away and started a new life because she got tired of her mother, or she's buried in a house somewhere and she'll turn up someday. And I said, well, that's a really big gap. What about the fact she's a missing person and something happened? And they dismissed that right away. Initially, the FBI did not look into Jessie's case because they were under the assumption that she went down to the United States to break the law and do illegal activities such as prostitution. But since then, Jessie's case has been talked about by the FBI, and her picture has been shown on different FBI websites when they talk about this so-called truck driver serial killer that's driving around the United States killing sex trade workers. They've connected her with 3 other women who were either in or forced into the sex trade in Las Vegas. One of them's case is so much like Jessie. She was taken there. She was actually, the other 3 were all murdered. The bodies were eventually found. And when they talk about Jessie as the 4th girl, they say, and Jessie Foster's body has just not been found yet. But the difference between her being a victim of a truck driver serial killer who drives around the country killing sex trade workers is that Jessie would have not encountered a truck driver. She did not, she did not frequent truck stops. And on top of that, all of Jessie's belongings went missing when Jessie did, suggesting that she went missing from her house and that
her things were all taken with her. Even if she did take off and took all of her things, the items that were left behind were her dryer and her makeup. And those are items that a young woman would never leave behind if they had have left willingly. So if it was a truck driver, how would he have got back to her house and got all of her belongings? If Jessie chose to leave, why did she leave those very important to her belongings behind? So the FBI kind of took an interest in Jessie, but I believe on the wrong level, but it's still interest, and I'm always grateful to anything. Private investigators and bounty hunters and other just very concerned citizens and organizations, those are the ones that have done the most for us, the ones that have helped us a lot. We've got a fair amount of media attention, all over. There have been songs and documentaries and books and all kinds of things on Jessie. And so, Jessie's case, I don't know, she just seems like, because I shared Jessie with everybody, and she's everybody's sister and everybody's friend and everybody's daughter. And so everybody loved her like a sister and a friend and a mom. And so it just seems like a lot of people wanted to do something. When Jessie's song was written by Nigel Graham, he's from the UK, and he started out with 2 songs, and Jessie's was the 3rd, and now he has Nigel Graham's International Songs for the Missing. And he writes songs for families because it's these things, we can listen to them, and it actually brings the person back to us for a moment. And, documentaries on, different missing women or unsolved cases that include Jessie's, and just really helps us raise awareness to her case. There's a lot of, there's more that I can say that have been helpful to us than not. It's just kind of sad that the ones that I can say that have not been very helpful to us are ones that are in a position to really do something, and that's the lead detective on the case, and that would be, the FBI or some kind of major police agency.
Okay, and we're going to post all of these links on Facebook. We're going to post these links on, if you're listening to this later on YouTube or on a2zen.fm, then just look down in the description, and we're going to add all of these links. And I just wanted to say, visit our Facebook at facebook.com/exposing the truth. Visit our website at exposingthetruth.info, and our Twitter is exposing for truth. There's also a Twitter for Jessie Foster, which is twitter.com/missingjessie. That's Jessie with an I-E. So many websites out there covering these issues. So of course, if anyone else is in a similar situation, get in contact with Glendene. Use a private investigator if that's more helpful than the authorities. Not that we should call them the authorities.
Mm-hmm. It's tough because they are the ones that we want to put all of our hopes and trust into, and I do know that they are busy, they are overworked, but it doesn't mean that you should just dismiss any case at your whim. It's not your call to decide off the top of your head with no proof whose case is worthy of looking into and whose is,
Yeah, we'll certainly help however we can, and wish you good luck, and we hope that you do help lots of other people. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron, very much. Thank you.